Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about the fact that Bitcoin has started to move back above the 200-week simple moving average. So if you enjoy the content, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. So the 200-week simple moving average is this purple line here, and basically what it does is it takes the average closing price of the last 200 candles and then plots it here. And as you can see, it's at around $22,700 today, and the current price of Bitcoin is at around $23,100. So we are above it by a few percent, and you can see how just a few weeks ago we had this rejection here back on the week of July 4th. So it will be interesting going into the weekend. Can we reclaim this moving average and then hold it as support on a weekly candle closing perspective? So this is important because historically, the 200-week simple moving average has corresponded to the bottoms during the bear market. So we can go all the way back to 2015. We can see how in January and then as well as August, we had support being held off the 200-week simple moving average, and that corresponded to the bear market bottom. We also had the bottom here in 2018 and 2019 off the 200-week average, held it as support on two key tests, and then one final test here in March of 2020 on this COVID capitulation. Now, do keep in mind, we did have a wick that brought us down by about 30% below the 200-week average. And the current low we have in place at its lowest point was only extended below the 200-week average by about 21% or so. So from a price perspective, we aren't extended below this as far as we've seen in Bitcoin's history. But from a time perspective, this is the longest we've gone and spent below the 200-week average on a candle closing perspective, with consecutive closes actually consolidating below this. So I don't expect that to be a good sign in general. I hope we have a reclaim on the weekly at some point. And when we do, I think it's going to be a very key sign that we might potentially have a low in place for maybe 4 to 6 months. And the reason I'm expecting that is because it would essentially turn all this price action into a deviation below it. It would reclaim and hold it as support. And we could see, consolidation above it, holding it as support. And if we have that, then that's going to be a very bullish sign. And I think that in general, we could expect some sort of relief rally back up to the $30,000 range in the event we're closing below this on a weekly perspective. Now, again, we're still only a few percent above it, and we have the weekly candle close coming up here in a few days. So very important to watch out for that going here into Sunday. Now, I think that if we're starting to come back down and we have the weekly close below $22,700, then we would ultimately look at this as yet another rejection. And in that event, I think the next logical area of interest will be the 300-week simple moving average. So the 300-week is historically a pretty good indicator in asset classes that have more data and price history than Bitcoin. Keep in mind, Bitcoin's only been around for 12 years. So the 300-week simple moving average really started to form back in 2016. And there's only been one time in history we actually got close to that, and that was during the March 2020 capitulation. We held support off this, bouncing just a few percent above it or so. So currently it's at around $17,000, and the 200-week and the 300-week are going to continuously move up. And the reason that is because if we go back 200 weeks, we can see we were closing prices around this $6,000 range. And if we go all the way back 300 weeks, we were really just at $600. So these are going to continuously move up as we're averaging closing prices up in the 22,000s. And I think that in the event we're starting to close the weekly back below this and then retest and move back down, the 300 week is a logical area where I would expect pretty strong support. I think in the event that we're seeing weekly candle closes and rejections off the 200 week, then we're going to be seeing a retest and a really, really strong support level being held at around the 300-week simple moving average. And if we were to retest it today, again, it's going to be at $17,000. But if we were, say, to retest it in a few months, say by the end of 2022, it could be at $17,800. It's not too much of a difference, but it is going to be moving up, so keep that in mind. And I also do want to talk about how this has confluence with some of the price action back in 2017 and 2018. So what I'm going to be doing is switching over here to a daily, and then just really going back here to the prior cycle all-time high. And we can notice this dead cat bounce here on the daily time frame at around $17,000. Now notice here we had this pretty significant decline all the way from $19,800 to the all-time high down to a low of around $10,800. We had a very sharp bounce back up, this dead cat bounce, forming this macro lower high at $17,200. So I'm just going to mark that here on the chart, and we can go back and see that we also had support being held here in November of 2020 on this correction. We were at this consolidation phase before leading into new all-time highs. So this is going to be a very key level, not only because it corresponds to this macro lower high, this dead cat bounce back in the prior cycle and the consolidation here in November, but also because it corresponds to the 300 weeks. So I think in the event that we're starting to come back down, this would provide strong support, and I would expect this to be very close from the bottom if the bottom is not already in place. So overall, I think it's going to be a phenomenal region to accumulate if we're starting to project, continue back lower. But if we're actually closing the weekly above this, having candle closes above it, holding it as support, I think that's also a strong evidence that we might potentially have a low in place for at least a few months before ultimately consolidating and forming, say, an accumulation phase or even a further relief rally up to the $30,000 region. So that's the end of my longer term analysis and my thoughts on the 200 and the 300 week simple moving average. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you enjoyed the content, please do consider leaving a like and subscribe. And as always, I will see you in the next one.